So I'll be talking a little bit about the different visa types and then what the requirements are for these visa types. We'll be talking about the visa application process, the interview, and then some things that you can do in the U.S. while you are under student status. And so without further ado, let's see if I can. Yes, there we go. So what type of student visa should a student apply for? That depends on what types of studies you're going to go do in the US. I will say I believe most people here are going to go study for a bachelor's or a master's degree, if I'm correct. And so that would be most appropriate under the F1 visa type. This is your standard student visa. This is for full-time undergraduate, graduate studies, and of course, full-time English language studies. We do also have the J1 exchange visa. This is typically for people who are going to do maybe an exchange semester or research internship, something shorter, something that has a set end date, and something that is not permanent. And the distinction is really with the F1 student visa, you're going with the intention of either pursuing full-time English language studies or a degree which you will receive at the end of your studies. And so this presentation will mostly focus on the F visa type, but we're happy to answer questions about J visas too at the end if you do have any questions about those. And this presentation will focus on the F1 student visa. This is for the person who is going to be doing the studies in the US. Sometimes for our master's degrees or PhD students, they sometimes go with their families, and so the family would be classified under an F2 visa. And so that is just a little distinction I wanted to make before I really dove in. So to apply for the F student visa, these are just some of the requirements that you need to be able to qualify under this visa type. So first is that you will have already been accepted to a school, and you will have the form I-20. The form I-20, and I'll go into that a little bit more later, is just a form certifying that yes, you are going to be going to a school in the US, and it'll provide some details about the education that you'll be doing. Um, Something else is that your intent to enter the United States at that time is to pursue your full course of study at the institution that you'll be going to. Um, and so sometimes we'll see F visa applicants who actually already have a tourist visa, so a B visa, for example. And so what's really important to keep in mind is that you can continue using that B visa if you're continuing to travel to the US as a tourist, but the moment you go to pursue your studies, you want to make sure that you're entering under that F visa because you're going to study at that time. So make sure that you're entering under the correct visa type. And something else is that you need to present your intent to leave the U.S. at the conclusion of your studies. And so how do you do this? Well, the idea is maybe you go to the U.S., you do your bachelor's degree, and then your plan after that might be to say you are going to study business administration, maybe your plan at the end is to return to Kazakhstan and open your own business. And so that is an example of your intent to leave the U.S. at the conclusion of your approved activities. So some of the other things to qualify under this visa type is the possession of sufficient funds to meet the education that you're going to pursue. And so this can come to us in a couple of different ways. And so some people are financed by themselves. Maybe they have their own savings, or maybe their parents or their other family members have put together some savings, or they're using their jobs to pay for these educations. And so that is an example of sufficient funds. Sometimes students receive scholarships or grants, and so that is a source of funding. Sometimes students receive loans, and that is also appropriate. Sometimes it's a mix of all three of two of these options, and that is okay as long as you have a means to finance your education in the U.S. And of course, preparation for course of study. This means that For example, if you're going to go do a bachelor's, maybe we want to hear about what you did in high school. If you're going to do a master's, what did you do for your bachelor's degree? Something that shows that you're prepared for the education that you're going to be pursuing in the US. So I mentioned the Form I-20, and this is the form that you will need if you're applying for an F visa. And I highlighted a couple of things that we look at, and so this will just give you an overview of some of the things that we'll be examining. You might see towards the top, it'll say SEVIS ID. This is very important. It affirms that you are a student, and not just that, but it will show that you continue to be enrolled, and this is important for maintaining your status under the F visa. Then it'll give some information about you and where you're coming from, and the form issue reason is important. So we look at that because sometimes it is initial attendance. That means that you're a student who is just going to start their studies. Sometimes it's continued attendance. So maybe you've already done 2 years of your bachelor's degree, and you went home, and now you need a new visa, and you're being issued a form that'll say, yes, you're going to go and continue your studies. Sometimes you're being issued the form because you finished your studies and now you want to go do your OPT, which I'll talk about a little bit more in detail. And so that is one of the things that we look at, and it'll inform some of the questions that we might ask you. And then after that, it'll talk about the school information. So it'll say, of course, the school name and where it is that you'll be going to. And those are some of the things that we're going to look at in the top half of the form. And then a little bit further down in the form, the program of study. This is very important. Of course, it'll say bachelor's, or maybe you're going to do your master's degree, PhD. Maybe you're going to do English language studies. It'll include that in the program study. And then major, that's important to us. We want to know what it is that you're studying, what it is that you're interested in. And then I do want to highlight the program English proficiency. So typically for if you're going to study in the US, for a bachelor's degree or a master's degree, English proficiency is required, and that'll be stated in the I-20 form. This means that the interview will be conducted in English, so we'll be asking all of our questions in English, and we do expect you to be able to have that level of conversation with us. And then, of course, you'll have the English proficiency notes, and this will say that the student is proficient. There are some cases where English proficiency is not required. This is typically with our applicants who are going to study English language as a second language in the US. And so the form will say that it is not required. And in that case, we will be able to conduct the interview in Kazakh or in Russian, in another language. Sometimes, even if you are studying English as a second language, you might already have some working level of English, and so we'd be interested in speaking to you in English just to sort of gauge what your abilities are at right now and to see what exactly it is that you need to develop your abilities in the US. And so we might do a mix of Russian and English, Kazakh and English. Um, and then beyond that, you'll see the start dates of classes and then the program start and end dates. And so you'll see here in this example, it is 4 years. This is typical of a bachelor's degree in the US. Sometimes for a master's degree, you'll see it might be 1 year, 2 year. A PhD might be up to 5 years, maybe longer. And so that's just something that's important for us to know when we're logging this. And then below that, it'll say your financials. So, of course, there's not just the tuition and fees, you're also living. Some of these cities in the US are very expensive. So you want to factor that into your financials, as well as if you are traveling with any family members, that'll go into your dependents expenses. And then you'll see your funding. And then, as I said, you'll have personal funds, whether that's coming from you, from your family, and then sometimes your school is offering funds, such as a scholarship, a grant, that'll go under funds from the school. And then that together will help us be able to have some more information about your case so that we can adjudicate it. And then right after that, there'll be some remarks. There's not always necessarily something in the remarks section. It's just if there's anything important that we need to know. So, for example, something that comes in mind for the remarks section is that say you're going to school and you actually don't have a major yet. Some schools allow you to apply as an undeclared major, and so maybe the remark will be student does not have major yet. Student will declare major at the end of first year or second year. That is something that is useful for us to know that will go under remarks. Um, Sometimes some students go, especially with international students, they'll go under a pathway program where the first year they will also take some classes on English language, and so maybe that will be indicated in the remarks. And again, that is useful for us to know. And then there are some schools where maybe you do 1 year in the US, and then it is expected that you do your second year in another country. And again, this should go under remarks, and this is very, very helpful for us to know. So that is just some of the things that we look at in the I-20 form, and you'll be expected to have this at your interview. And then I do briefly want to talk about the visa incidental studies. Um, Some people ask if it is possible to study in the US under a B visa. A B1, B2 visa is your standard tourism and business visa that most people use to travel to the US, of course, for short-term business purposes or for tourism. I want to make it very clear a B visa is not appropriate to go and pursue a bachelor's degree or master's degree. Um, and we do take any violations of this very seriously, so please make sure that you apply under the correct visa type. Um, However, sometimes we do get applicants, typically, younger applicants who tend to be going to the US maybe for a short cultural program, sometimes during the summer in between breaks. And so an example of this is maybe sometimes some high school students they arrange to go to the US for 2, 3 weeks with a small group. Some of the things that they'll be doing is sightseeing, and maybe learning something about US culture. And sometimes this will include some English as a second language courses. This is permissible if it is a short course of study. What this means is that you'll be there just for a couple of weeks and that you're not just going to study English language. This is part of your overall program, and you will not be receiving a degree or anything official from this program. Sometimes we have students who are going to the US who are going um, maybe for a week or 2 weeks, but it actually does count towards their degree and it is required towards their degree. For example, if you're studying at a local university here in Kazakhstan and this exchange, maybe 1 week, 2 week, is required for your degree, that will be under a J visa, not a B visa. And so as I said, I don't think most people here should worry about that, but it is something that I just wanted to mention. Make sure that you're going to the US under the correct visa type. So now the steps for applying for a visa. The first one is check the validity of your passport. Sometimes we do get people who bring us passports that have already expired, so please make sure that your passport is still valid. Um, and you want to take a recent picture. Um, Say, for example, you applied for a tourist visa, maybe with your family, with your friends a year ago, maybe 2 years ago. You cannot reuse the same picture. It has to be within the 6 months. And so make sure that you bring us that new pictures for your new visa application. And then you will complete the visa application, which is known as Form DS-160. You want to make sure that you complete all of it and make it as detailed as you can, because this will make the interview process a lot easier for you and for us as well. You'll pay the visa application fee as well as the service fee. So the visa application fee is a fee for the visa interview itself, whereas the service fee, this is a fee for people who are going under F, M, or J visas, and this is to ensure that we're able to keep track of your status and make sure that you're in status the whole time in the US. These are two separate fees, and you want to make sure that you pay both of them. And then finally, you want to go ahead and schedule your interview to come see us here in Embassy Astana, to go down to the consulate in Almaty, and it is permitted to apply in a third country as well. Um, so you want to make sure you go ahead and schedule your interview. And now the interview itself. So what should you bring to your visa interview? Your passport, of course. Um, your photo, as I said, should be taken within the past 6 months. You want to bring the original I-20 form, and the I-20 form will be issued to you by the school that you'll be attending. And so once you've been accepted, the designated school official, which is known as a DSO, they're the point of contact for international students. And so they will make sure that you receive your form I-20, and you want to go ahead and make sure that you bring that to us because we do require it at the interview. You want to bring a confirmation of your completed DS-160. The idea is that we're able to see it on our screens, but you want to make sure to bring a copy just in case to have with you. Um, we will request it sometimes. And then you want to bring a receipt of the visa fee and the SEVIS fee payment. This is particularly important because sometimes there's a big time difference between the US and Kazakhstan. Some people pay their SEVIS fee last minute and there's just not a chance for it to update in the system. And so you may have paid your SEVIS fee, and without the SEVIS fee confirmation page, we just won't be able to see it on our side. So it's very important that you do bring that confirmation page with you. Again, just to make sure that we are aware that you did pay your SEVIS fee. And then you'll want to bring school transcripts, acceptance, invitation letters, um, maybe if you got a scholarship, the scholarship letter. Sometimes we'll ask to see your publications, anything that supports your studies in the US. Um, and so by school transcripts, we do mean, of course, where you have already studied. We might want to get an idea of what types of classes you were taking. And we might not necessarily ask to see all these documents, but we might. So it's good to bring them. And then you should bring your resume or CV. And sometimes, if you're a bachelor student, maybe you don't have a lot of experience. That is totally okay and that is expected. Just anything that you do have on file with you, just so we can get an idea of what you've been doing. For people who are going to do a master's degree or a PhD degree, we really are interested in seeing your resume or CV. And the idea is that you will have done your bachelor's already, so we expect that there might be some things on there already, and so we'll ask to see that. And so our expectations at the interview, um, one of them is that applicants can discuss their program of study and what their plans exactly are in the US. And I say documents alone are not sufficient because sometimes we'll get some very excited applicants who come up to us and they're like, "Oh, here are all of my documents. Please look at my documents." And we do love receiving your documents, but there is a reason that we do the interview and we don't just ask you to send in your documents is because we really do want to talk to you and it is an interview. And so sometimes we'll get uh, we might ask you the question, how will you pay for your studies in the US? And people will say, oh, uh, oh, I forgot the word in English. I have a spravka. I have my spravka here. Or I have this letter that shows that I have a full scholarship in the US. And it's great to see that. We love to see that, but we're also interested in talking to you. So maybe we'll ask you, okay, thank you for the spravka. Can you tell me where did you get these funds? Where do you work? Or where do your parents work? How did you get this money? Or for the scholarship, we might ask, "Oh, okay, can you tell us about how you applied for this scholarship? Was this a need-based scholarship, a merit-based scholarship? Did you have to write an essay? Did you have to do an interview?" And so these are some of the questions that we might ask you. And then we do ask that applicants are honest, and we do say this because I understand it can be intimidating to come up to the interview window, and you might think that we want to hear a very specific answer. Um, the truth is there's no right answer because everyone is unique. And I know this sounds very, very typical, very cliche, but everyone has a different story and a different reason for studying what it is that they are studying. And so we want to hear your reason for that. And there really is no right answer except the real answer, which we do want to hear from you. And then this last one, students meet the requirements of the educational program. The biggest issue that we run into sometimes with this particular bullet is that we'll see someone who wants to do a bachelor's degree in the US, maybe or a master's degree, and they they haven't studied in the US before, and the Form I-20 says that English proficiency is required, and the form says that the student is proficient, but the student is not able to answer our questions in English at the interview. And this does pose problems because we want to see you succeed. We want you to go to the US and to do wonderful in your bachelor's or your master's degree. And if you're not able to answer our questions in English at the interview, then we do have concerns about your ability to succeed in this program. And so we do expect the student to be able to meet the requirements of the educational program, particularly in regards to knowledge of the English language if it is required. Something I do want to note, sometimes students will bring along their family or their children. Sometimes master students will do this, PhD students will do this. Um, we might have questions for your spouse or for your older children. They're not expected to speak English. They can speak English, and that's great. That's fine, but there's no expectation that just because you're required to speak English that they will speak English. So we're happy to interview them in Kazakh or in Russian as long as you, the main applicant, are able to speak in English. So if the visa is refused, you can always apply for another interview, but these are some things that you should consider. So think about the questions that you were asked by the consular officer because you will probably be asked some similar questions the second time. And so just think about your answers the first time and think about how you answered them and see if there's anything that maybe you didn't answer correctly or maybe you didn't provide enough detail and really focus on this. Um, the second one, I talked about this a little bit already. It is a visa interview and not a review. And so what I mean by this, sometimes, like I said, we get some very excited students who are very excited to give us their documents. And then when we ask questions, they give us very vague answers, very brief answers. And so documents alone are not enough. We do expect you to be able to speak to us. And so just consider this. And then finally, consider whether any of your circumstances have changed from your last refusal. And so maybe, for example, the last time you were applying for a visa, you didn't have that English language proficiency. Maybe now you went and you took some English language courses, and now you have that level of proficiency. Or maybe last time you weren't sure how you were going to finance your studies, but maybe now you received a scholarship, or you have funding from another source. And so that is something that you might want to bring up at your subsequent interview. And now I want to talk about the 221G refusal. This is a very specific type of refusal. Um, this is a visa refusal that where we might request some additional documents or we might have to do some additional processing, and then we may be able to reconsider the refusal. So I want to make it very clear, a 221G refusal is a visa refusal. And then there's a possibility that we might reconsider this refusal. Um, and this means we might be able to issue you in the future, but it should very much be considered a visa refusal. And some of the common reasons that we have to do a 221G refusal is that the I-20 is not presented or it is correct. Sometimes you forgot your I-20 at home and we can't do it without the I-20. Or maybe the dates of your program change. So maybe you were originally planning to go in August, but now the program starts in September. It has to be correct in the I-20 form. Maybe you didn't bring all your supporting documents and we want to see some of those, so we might refuse you under Section 221G. And then sometimes we simply need to do more administrative processing on our end. And there's no way to expedite this. We will simply take all your documents and we'll reach out to you if we do need anything else from you. So now preparing for departure. Um, these are some things that you should know about your visa. The visa will not guarantee you entry into the United States. It will allow you to travel to the United States and request entry at one of the port of entries. And so this means that you do still need to go through immigration and clear customs when you're entering the US. The visa just allows you to be able to do that. And so something that you really need to remember is that you need to have the visa with you as well as the Form I-20. Please don't put your I-20 inside of your checked luggage because then you won't be able to have that to present it at the port of entry. It is very important that you have it with you because it will cause problems for you if you're trying to enter the US and you don't have your I-20 form with you. Um, and finally, when can you travel to the US? Something that you should know, you can apply for the visa 365 days, up to 365 days before you go and do your studies in the US, but you can only enter the US 30 days before your program date starts. And so, say your program begins in September, you'd be eligible to enter 30 days before, so sometime in August. But maybe you just graduated from high school or from your bachelor's degree and your family wants to give you a present. They're like, "Oh, let's all go see the university that you're going to study at and we want to go in July." This is awesome, but you will not be able to do this with an F visa. The appropriate visa will be a B visa, which is a tourist visa. Your family can all apply for B visas and you're all welcome to go to the US and see that together because as I said, the F visa, you're only eligible to enter 30 days before. So this is just something to keep in mind. And then I'm almost done, I promise. During the F1 studies, this is a lot more technical and looking a little bit more to the future, but just some questions that you might have right now. Can a student get a job? Can you get a job while you're on a student visa? The answer is yes. However, you can work no more than 20 hours per week because the idea is that a student visa is not for working. But of course, we understand some cities in the US are expensive. Maybe you want to take a weekend trip to New York with your friends. Maybe you want to go to the movies, to go out and eat, and some restaurants are very expensive. Of course, it makes sense that you might need some money, and so you are permitted to work 20 weeks on campus. After that, it is possible to get work off campus, but you do have to go through DHS, and you're still only permitted to work for 20 hours a week. And then practical training. So it's called optional practical training. The idea is that you go to the US, you do your studies, and then maybe you want to work in whatever field it is that you're studying to get some experience in that field. And so this is permitted. Again, your first point of contact should always be your designated school official. They deal with so many students who are doing OPT, and so they will help you get the new I-20 form and to help you get that employment authorization for you to be able to work after you get your degree. And so this is very important. This is some information where you can get the websites where you can get any further information about your studies in the US. Of course, this includes our embassy websites, but also information from the Department of Homeland Security, which is our other main agency partner for immigration purposes. And then finally, stay connected with the U.S. mission, post lots of great contacts, lots of really great content on there. Sarah, who works in the public diplomacy section, posts some wonderful, wonderful things on there, not just about visas, but also about visas. So, yeah, we'd always love to go ahead and stay connected with you. So, with all that, I think this will bring my presentation to a close, and I will stop stop sharing. Yes. There we go. So thank you so much for allowing me to do that.